Hello and welcome to another episode of Is It Bloody Working with me, JJ Stenhouse, and Alexia Leachman. Hi, Alexia.
Hi JJ, how are you doing?
All right, thank you very much. Today we're going to be talking about something that I don't think many people do talk about or are aware before they embark on any change work, and that's what happens when you re-enter your old environment, your family environment, your workplace
Yeah,
environment, all of that. We're going to talk about what that looks like or often looks like for those of us who go through change work. But before we get into that, we've been up to, we've been doing a bit of change. we've
yeah,
been we've been up to some change in the past week. Do
yeah.
you want to talk about that?
Well, for those that are into the world of AI, may or may not be aware that there was Claude brought out a crazy new model called Fable 5. So I obviously jumped in to do a lot of work with that. And one of the things that I was doing was dating our anxiety assessment, which we've been testing our anxiety assessment. So this is an assessment that tells you where you're at, what your anxiety patterns are, and where your key drivers of your anxiety are, so that you can focus on what you want to start changing and where to focus your attention in terms of addressing your anxiety. So that's what the anxiety pattern tracking assessment is all about. So I was chatting with my practitioners, and they're like, "Oh, we really want to use this with our clients. Like, how does that? What does that look like?" And I realized I really needed to set up a mechanism so that practitioners who work with anxiety could order a bundle of these and then provide it as part of their work with the clients that they're working with. So I've been busy kind of creating like what we're going to call practitioner packs so that you can buy bundles of these assessments so that you can work with clients. So I'm in the middle of kind of doing back end technical stuff, which Claude and AI is, there's no way I'll be able to do that without any of that because I am not a coder. But yeah, we're making really good progress. So hopefully that's going to be ready in the next couple of weeks, is so that practitioners that work with anxiety can have a way of measuring and tracking and managing that with their clients, and pointing as to what the drivers are. And then so their clients don't have to pay for it. It's all covered as part of the work that you do with them. So that's what we're doing. It's really, really excited to get that one out there actually, JJ.
It is, and we're going to be getting a lot more information about anxiety on the website. Something that we both know a little bit about, I think, don't you think?
I know, yeah. Messing with it for a long time and now working with lots of people on it. So yeah, it's a beast that we both know very well from inside and out, right?
Right, exactly. So it is very exciting to get all this out there. So yeah, so watch this space, as they say, and do
Yes.
check us out on our website, ladderofgrowth.io. But let's get back to the subject at hand, and that is the issue where somebody decides life isn't working. They've got to do something. They've got to make some changes. They seek therapy. They go to a practitioner. They do some change work. They deal with some of the issues that's holding them back in life, and that's all great. And they feel the change. They feel great. They sometimes feel quite elated,
Mm,
and then they head back into their family and their friendship group and their work environment, and suddenly it's all a bit, oh,
yeah.
right. It's a real thing, and it's something that we don't talk about enough, I think.
No, I know. And I remember when I did the guy with big teeth, when I went to one of his weekend events. And it's a very intense 3 day event where there's lots of stuff going on, and you come away from an event like that feeling elated, like you say, feeling like, oh my God, I'm going to do things differently. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to drink my alkaline thing, and I'm going to do my juice. You come up with all these ideas about what you want to do, and thinking about, I'm going to really spend some time doing journaling, and you really have these. You've made these promises to yourself that you're going to do all these amazing things, and you feel incredibly motivated by it. And then you go home, and you sort of share that with people, and they just sort of eye roll at you and go, yeah. And then, well, do you want to come to the pub then? And you're like, no, I don't want to go to the pub. Like, I've got to stop drinking. I must cut back on my drinking. You don't get it.
I
and
know,
it's
I know. And
not.
I have to say that when I was doing my NLP training, we were very much warned of this, right? We were told, just be aware when you re-enter the outside world, as it were, that, things will have changed and relationships might have changed. And you
Yeah.
just be aware so that you can think about how you manage that. And it's really, it's not something that is obvious, because all families or groups, relationships, that they are built around patterns,
Yeah.
even patterns that you don't like. And when those patterns are forcibly shifted or moved, or the dynamics changed, then things can get really tricky. And you have to kind of be very aware to maintain your own equilibrium.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, how do we do that? That's a thing, isn't it?
Well, I think it's really hard because also you kind of assume that that the people close to you, the people that love you, the people that that you're your friends and family, that they want the best for you, and then, so that when you go out and do something that is in your best interest, you have a belief that they're going to be really happy that you're doing that, and then and then you get met with they're not really happy, even though they might say it is, that there's clearly a resistance there because now it creates a gap between you and them, and that gap highlights that they're not moving. And a good example is if there's, if you say you're going to quit smoking and your best friend smokes and you manage to sort of quit smoking, well, what does that mean for your relationship and you going off for a sneaky fag in the lunch hour and all the things that you used to do? Now you're creating a division, not a division, but there's a gap there. What's happening to the relationship that was bonded over those cigarettes? So that's going to be very hard for you to quit smoking when your best friend isn't
Yeah.
quitting smoking or quitting drinking or whatever it is, that the habit that you're trying to cut back on. And the same goes to that inner work where maybe you're not going to, you're spending time doing that internal reflection and thinking about where you're getting triggered and trying not to put yourself in situations that you know are going to exacerbate things. And you're being mindful in your behavior. That can be really hard when all around you people are not doing that, and they're almost like making it really hard for you to do that, knowing what you're trying to do. They're almost not maybe deliberately, but subconsciously deliberately trying to scupper your chances because they realize that if you succeed, then the friendship's at risk.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And they don't want that, and they don't want to have to deal with that. And also it maybe shows them up as well,
Yeah,
because if the relationship, hasn't been based on the best foundations, let's say, then it shows them up as well, maybe, right?
yeah, yeah. But I think also there's a part here that's about how our own personal evolution and the evolution of relationships as well. There could be many friendships that were forged in, let's say, in your youth where you're going to the pub and you're doing all of that stuff. But some people stay in that world, they stay in that life that is going to the pub and doing all that. And they don't necessarily think, okay, now I'm in my late 30s. I might stop doing the pub every Friday. I might move on and evolve my life. And some people don't do that. So when you do
Right.
want to do that, and leaving it to the late 30s is probably a bit late for some people, they might want to think, well, I want to stop doing that in my late 20s. But the friendships that were forged in those moments, now, well, what do they have to bond them over? So you all need to move on. And if some people aren't moving on or take a look and refreshing and doing things differently with their life, then that does cause problems. And so because there could be meaningful history there. Let's say it's a friend that you've known since you were 5, right? So you don't want to just abandon them, not abandon them, but there might be a sense, they might even say to you, oh, you're abandoning me, I feel so abandoned. They might even use words like that because that is how they're feeling.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
you then think, oh, maybe I shouldn't do. And so now you feel the pull back. And now it can be quite complex at that point because now there's guilt and the resentment starts building up. And I think it's important to be honest about what you want to do and why you're doing it so that people can understand why you're doing it. But again, these are all aspects of ourselves that we're just getting to grips with. And that's not always easy to have that kind of honest conversation.
No, no, the honesty thing is really important. And actually, funnily enough, as you were talking there, I was thinking back to this morning. I heard somebody describe how they had remained married to their partner for, I think, well, they'd been together about 30 years. And they said, oh, it's because we allowed each other to grow
Mm.
within the partnership, right? That is easier said than done, right? Easier said than done. Congratulations to them for doing that.
Yeah.
But just as people say, oh, you got to surround yourself with positive people. Well, there's positive, and there is encouraging, supportive, and
Yeah.
people who have a mindset which is not resting totally on the negative, but does look to what they can achieve, what's possible. but positive isn't always great. And actually, just to say to somebody, oh, just surround yourself with positive people, just ignore the negatives.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not
No,
going to
that's I
help
think that's heading
anybody.
in, that's toxic positivity
Yeah,
territory where this where because positiveness itself is not that's not the thing that's good. That's not the thing that's going to move you forward. It is honesty and integrity. And it's taking a look at maybe those parts of yourself that are dark, that need work, that need processing, that need release. And that's not always the positive aspects, but it's about confronting that, releasing it, and coming to terms with it, accepting it, and being able to let go of that. That process of going through all of that is rarely all song and dance. It can be messy, snotty, emotional, difficult, sleepless nights. It can be all of those things. And so if you're confronted with somebody that's like, oh, cheer up, you think, no, I am not in a space right now where I'm like, cheer up, I'm processing some dark shit right now. Can you hold the space for me while I do that? To be with people that can give you that space, not necessarily to like leave you to it and go, oh, yeah, call me in 2 years when you've done this, but it's like
yeah,
to sit there with you while you are going through that and recognize that sometimes you don't need cheering up in inverted commas. You just need somebody to be there and to witness you and to go, you know what, yeah, I know this is tough, but you're doing really well. Like, just keep going.
I
That's
know.
really helpful at times like that. And so it's not
Yeah,
about positivity.
yeah. Cheer up. I mean, who? If anybody says that to me, I just want, I just
Headbutt
want,
them.
yes, give them the good old fish slapping. Um, yeah, I mean, cheer up. What is that really?
No, I know. And it's this kind of phrase that is just so surface and so doesn't really it illustrates that somebody really isn't respecting what's going on for you and not really, yeah, paying attention. So if anybody's saying that, then, you know, steer clear.
Yeah, yeah. The other thing though is, you know, if we were warned that this kind of thing could happen, maybe we have a better chance of dealing with it, or even, it was explained to us as we're going through whatever change work we're going through, that this could be a thing. It might be more helpful, but a lot of practitioners, they do great work, but then at the end of it, that's that, and you're just left on your own to deal with the other side of it, which is, I'm doing great now. Oh, what about the rest of us?
Yeah, yeah,
What about the rest of my circle? um yeah, and sometimes people just fall back into the old ways because they're not feeling that they could actually move forward.
yeah,
They've done the work, but it just costs too much
yeah,
to maintain that.
yeah,
It costs too much. They think they're going to lose their relationships, they're going to lose their family.
yeah. And also
And
there's a sense of this role that people have a perceived perception about who you are. and
yeah,
and that can be very fixed. They might have established that sense of who you are like 10 years ago, and so whenever you're with them you kind of fall into the role that they see you as. And 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 that might be very hard for you to present a different version of yourself, because you know that if you do, you're not quite sure how that's going to be met. And especially with those, that if you're still wrestling with, themes of abandonment or rejection or self-esteem, and you don't want to be rejected by your long lost childhood friend or whatever, and so you fit in with how they see you, and knowing that actually you're compromising yourself in those very moments, but that can feel very torn, like, well, who, and that if I show myself as I am today, then what are we going to talk about? Like how there's a gaping chasm that opens up, and then it just becomes very, very hard to maintain. And that's where the honesty comes back, is, maybe your views have changed, maybe you're, as a result of the work, you've got different values, different priorities in life, and it's allowing the space for people around you to move and to shift in those ways without requiring that they stay fixed. But I don't know if people explicitly require them to stay fixed, but it's this sense of, if you don't stay with how you have been, then that's where the friction comes up, and the discomfort and the awkwardness, and then maybe you don't want to let go of these relationships because maybe they mean a lot to you, and so it's a very complex area. How do you think, well, maybe I'll just not bother doing this stuff because then at least I have my tribe, I have my people, I have my friends. Or do I become a new person and leave all that behind? That's a difficult choice to make.
It is. And we were talking before we started recording. I have so been there with my family, and not even realizing at the time how much that was costing me in terms of becoming more me.
Mm.
It's a very tricky area, and you were saying that that's not something that you had really encountered with your
No,
family.
well, I've got such a small family. It's like my other half, he's got a massive family. Like his mum's one
Mm.
of five, his dad's one of five. So there's like 30, 40 cousins. I mean, there's like a whole load of them. And I don't have that. And so I can imagine that someone in his family would have that. They go back for Christmas, they go back, and there's these people that have known them their whole life since they were like 10 centimeters long or whatever, like not 10 centimeters long, but you know what I mean. And so there's always that, oh, you've grown. I remember when you were, you were whatever at five. And you're like, oh my God, am I ever going to let go of this thing when I was five? I'm 45 now. Come on. There's this sense that there are people that still remember you the way that you were. And so the family can be a really powerful tether to this old version of you. And then as you grow and evolve, but you keep going back for these family get-togethers, again, I've got no direct experience of this, so I can't speak to it directly, but I kind of sense that I kind of observe people that maybe struggle to shift and move on because they have such a strong family connection or strong relationships like that. And I say strong, that doesn't necessarily mean they're healthy relationships. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're good but they're very strong bonds. And to try and shift away and to evolve as a human when there's those things keeping you tethered to this old version of yourself, I can imagine that that would be really, really hard. And because I've not got a big family, there's my brother, and I lost my mum a while ago, and my dad's he was an only child. So if I'm changing, I'm just like cracking on doing me, and they can come along for the ride or not. Like I haven't got these people I need to fit in with, and I think maybe that's been good for me in some way. I don't know. I've often longed for a big family, but maybe I've been able to keep pace with my own inner work, and I've been going at it like crazy for me because that's been something that I've been very committed to. And maybe that's part of why I've been able to do it in that way. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it may well be, but then there's the other side to that, and sometimes you know no amount of inner work will resolve what's going on externally, right?
Right.
So then what happens? Then do you have to make the decision whether you just walk away? And a lot of people do that,
Yeah.
and that's a tough one.
Yeah.
How do you navigate that? I think maybe we should start we should start a program helping people navigate that.
Well, I moved countries. That
Yeah,
does a
you did.
really good job. If you move countries during the pandemic, you can really cut all your relationships really quickly.
Yeah, you did do that, didn't you? Um, yeah, but I mean that's just replay, moving yourself into another place so that you don't have to face it day to day.
Yeah.
But for a lot of people, you're stuck in the same place, you're stuck in the same
Yeah.
town, you're seeing the same people day to day. How do you resolve that? It's not so easy to walk away. And I know that I've been taught many times when I've been doing change work that if it gets to that point, if things are really not great for you, walk away from that
Mm.
because you don't, that's not what you need.
And that's really hard. I remember there was one time I
It's
had to have a
tough.
conversation with somebody, and every time I was with her, I I just realized that it wasn't a relationship that was two-sided. There was a lot, and I just said it to her. I said, like, there's a lot here that is not working for me. And that was the end of the relationship. Like there
Yeah.
was no coming back from that. And that was tough because, we had some good times. We went traveling together. We did lots of really, really great things. But I realized that this wasn't a relationship that was, yeah, it just didn't feel balanced. And yeah, I thought I'm not going to deal with this. Now I realize that a lot of people might not do that. And I'm trying to think about where I got the strength to do that also, because the person I was back then is not the person I am today. So
No. Yeah.
it must have been quite bad. I say bad. I mean, it must have been quite marked
Intense. Yeah.
for me to do such a thing. Um, yeah. But it does come with great cost, and then you find yourself, alone, isolated, lonely, all those things, and now you got to go out and find find new people, and that's not easy. And speaking as, moving to a foreign country, like going out and finding new friends, especially later in life, is not easy. It's not the same as when you're young, where you're in environments where there's an encouragement, and you're around people that are actively trying to find friends. Whereas when you're later in life, where people have got established relationships, established setups, established families, it's much harder to start finding new friends later in life. At least I found that.
Oh
Um,
no, I found it myself as well,
yeah,
and also kind of moved countries a while back,
yeah, you've
but
done
still,
that as well.
but still within the UK. Um, but yeah, when you are older, it can be more difficult. So,
Mm,
but it's also enriching. It's also exciting. It's also
yeah,
fun, right?
yeah,
All of these things. And we're not saying that it's awful and that one shouldn't do it, but we're just trying to highlight the real issue that sometimes you kind of find yourself a bit like a square peg in a round hole,
yeah,
and that's not a great feeling. So how do you manage
yeah,
that? um so yeah, I mean, you talked about being honest with your friend that time. um and I've done that in relationships before now, said this isn't working for me, and actually I can think of one ex, and we're still very good friends today because we were honest and said, okay, this isn't working,
yeah,
but we were able to remain friends. So here's the question: is that what we should be doing? Do we have to announce to the world that we've shifted, there's been a change, or do we just quietly let the people around us see that we're not quite the same as we were before
yeah.
we went through the work?
This is in a really interesting part that kind of really verges into energetics quite a lot, that I see quite a lot with the work that I do. And with the modality that I've developed, there are specific aspects to it where we are addressing directly the social aspect of what's going on, the head trash, for example. So how you respond to those around you, how they respond to you, how you respond to your environment. So we're addressing that stuff directly. And what's really interesting that I've observed through doing that is that often when there's a dynamic at play with somebody where it might not be entirely healthy, or let's say givers and takers, you've got some people that are just all taking, and then some people find themselves they're always in the giving role, and they can't, to kind of shift that. And that's a little bit how I felt with this relationship I was talking about, where the one-sidedness of it. And so but the thing is, let's take givers and takers, right? When you have a giver and a taker, if you've got someone that's like, there are loads of takers around, it requires givers for a taker to be a taker. You can't be
Yeah.
a taker unless there's a giver. And so energetically, you're kind of playing that. You're in the dance. You're jumping into the giver role when there's a taker around, and they're quite happily taking more off you because you're happily giving more, right? So it takes you to stop giving for them to stop taking. You can't just expect them to stop taking, because that's kind of how the dynamic, the energetic relationship is set up. So the minute you do that work on yourself and the energetics change, suddenly you're not available to give. And they will pick up on that very quickly. And either they stop taking from you, or they'll just go and find another giver and float off. It's like a magnet. Suddenly you switch your magnet off and they're like,
It's
oh, there's
true.
nothing here. And they'll just either stick around because actually there's more there, or they'll just go off and find somebody else they can take off. So once you've done that inner work, the environment does start to shift, at least with the work that I do. So sometimes you don't need to announce it explicitly using words and language. Sometimes it's felt, and the people just shift around you accordingly. And a lot of that tension, a lot of that dis-ease in terms of that lack of comfort, or maybe with the tension that's going on, the conflict kind of just dissolves sometimes because of the work that person's done on themselves. And I think that's a really useful perspective, is that you can't, and we know this, you can't change other people, but you can
Right.
change yourself. That's the
Exactly.
one thing you can control, is how you show up. But you need to go deeper than just go, I'm going to start doing XYZ now. You need to, it's an energetic thing. It's about how people feel in your presence. It's the frequency, the way that you're emitting it. And if people just sense that you are no longer available for that shit, they will go elsewhere. They
I
will
know.
just know, won't they?
Yeah, well, they do. And I see this all the time, and I've experienced it myself a lot in my life. People just, you know, they will either be drawn to you. At the moment, dogs are drawn to me. I don't know why. I, you have an energy, and people are either drawn to that energy or they're repelled by it, I find. And it's the same with animals. I went for a walk the other day, and a dog ran from one side of the park to the other to say hello to me. The owner was saying, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. I said, no, it's fine. I'm just, dogs just do that for me. And they just sense an energy and they want to come and say hello. It's the same with people. It's the
Yeah.
same with any animal or any sentient being. We have an energy, and depending on where you are on that energetic scale, people will resonate with you.
Yeah.
That's a term that's overused often in the whole kind of spirituality world, but it's true.
Yeah.
There's a resonance.
Yeah.
And once you are at a certain resonance, a certain, you're vibrating at a certain level, you will attract those same people. And the people who were attracted to that other resonance are going to fall away because they can't connect,
Mm.
they can't get into that.
Yeah.
So absolutely, I see it all the time, and I completely
Yeah.
agree.
And sometimes
Mm.
it means that it won't ever require a conversation
Yeah,
because the energetics will kind of just lead the way, and suddenly they'll just stop contacting you. You'll not really miss it, and so you're able to then move on or shift without those difficult. And then you just recognize that that was the end of that relationship, and that
right,
it doesn't need to end on a difficult note or anything like that. But
exactly.
but being when you do work at that level, it means that I think it does give you the space to be able to change and to move on and to become the person that you want to be without necessarily tarnishing or damaging any relationships. And those that do have the strength within them to carry on to it and to give you the space to do that. But also let's not forget that you doing that, you showing that kind of work can inspire those around you to also now start doing the work because and I've seen this a lot with the women that I've worked with on their pregnancy and birth journeys, where they've come because they've been called to the work because they want to prepare, and that they're the ones that need to prepare for pregnancy and birth. And then the partner witnessing what they're doing kind of like wants to kind of get involved and keep up, as it were. And I think that's a beautiful thing where, sometimes you might want your other half to do that kind of work, but telling them to do it, begging them to do it is not going to do that. You just showing up doing it and show up how you're shifting as a result of doing that work is the best thing you can do to bring those around you along for the ride. And at the end of the day, when you're doing that kind of inner work that's enabling you to be a better version of yourself, then you want that for other people too. And really, if they end up being their better version of them is no longer aligned with your better version of you, and that might mean that you might no longer want to be together, no longer want to be friends, or go off in different directions. That I don't know. For me, that's okay. That feels like, well, we're being authentic, we're being real. And again, it's that honesty coming through where
Yeah,
this is the right thing for me. And I want the right thing for you because I wouldn't expect you to keep me caged in or hemmed in or compromise myself in that way. So I can't expect you to do that. And actually, this is best for both of us. It just brings a realness to it that I think is probably missing in a lot of aspects of the way people relate to each other. So, but it might be sad too, and that's okay.
oh, it's often sad. Yeah, I think that's part of it. But then again, we have to acknowledge that sadness is a part of life. We are going to be
Yeah,
sad when
yeah.
relationships end, when things move away. um yeah, so then, and I also think that it's easy almost for us to sit here and talk about it and say, well, um we feel that we can deal with these things, but that, a lot of people, they may have changed one part of an aspect of themselves that needed changing, but there are other bits that need to be brought up. And that's kind of where ladder of growth can help as well, can't it? Because
Mm,
what we can see is the whole spectrum across somebody's internal landscape and say, well, you're doing well with this now, but
yeah,
this needs to be brought up a little bit, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. And what's been quite interesting because we've been doing lots of user testing lately with a lot of our assessments, and it's interesting how a lot of people have been saying things like, "Oh, I suspected that. I thought that." It's really good to see it written because now I know I can that is a thing. I wasn't imagining it, and now I can do something about it. And this other thing that I thought was a thing actually isn't, and actually that resonates too. And having that sense of it's difficult. Is it validation? Is it, where you suspect that there's something that you need to sort
Yeah.
out in yourself, but you're not
Yeah.
sure. And actually you're just juggling all of these things that you maybe suspect need doing. And so you're carrying a lot of ifs and buts. Is it this? Is it that? Is it, oh, it could be that, it could be that. Well, maybe that, and that can take a lot of mental energy, mental and emotional energy, is wondering. And the minute you can just put a few of those things down and go, no, you know what? It's not any of those things that I'm good on. It's just these two things over here. That can be enormously, like, give you a lot of relief already. And then you've got focus to kind of sort the things out that are going to move, help you become more balanced for yourself. So having that visibility of your internal landscape, at least with the people that we've been testing things so far with, that has been enabled them to, and that is another thing that's been quite remarkable. It's like once they've known that this is a thing that needs the work, they're like, right, okay, that's the thing that needs the work. Right, I'm going to sort that bit out. And now they're able to move forward. So I think when you're not sure, oh, it could be down here, it could be down here, it could be, there's 8 possible doors I could go in. Well, which one's it going to be? Well, I'm just going to sit here in indecision because I don't know. And it's like, no, it's not any of those 8. It's actually just 2 doors. Just pick 1 or 2. Oh, well, that's an easy decision. I'm going to move
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Now you can move forward and do something. And that enables you to accelerate your growth. And, and that's a good thing.
It is a good thing. And, again, it's worth saying that the ladder of growth, it measures where we are internally, but at least it gives you a steer on, where you might want to go next and what you might want to shore up so that you can handle and navigate everything that's going on in your life in a much better way. So, yeah. So do get in touch with us if that is of interest to you, because, you might find that it really helps you see where you need to go next. You can get in touch with us at ladderofgrowth.io and contact us here on Substack. I'll say that again. And let us know what you think about these podcasts, because we enjoy doing them and we hope that they are of some use. That we hope that they allow you to understand a few things about yourselves. Maybe, we give you a new outlook on some issues that you may be facing. But yeah, let us know because we'd love to hear. So we're coming to the end, I think.
Yes.
Just one more thing to say really is, in our sit spot, have a sit down at some point in the week with a cup of tea or a glass of wine or whatever's your favorite, and have a think about a change that you've made in your life. It doesn't matter, however small. You may have just been, buying a different look, going to the shops and buying yourself a different dress or something, or a new suit. Notice how the people closest to you responded when it first showed up. Were they curious? Did they say, "Oh, you look like an idiot"? Or, what was the reaction? And think about whether that pulled you back into where you were before. Yeah, it's quite a good exercise to do, actually, isn't it?
That's a good one, isn't it? Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
The outfit one is a really good one.
Yeah. So on that note, we'll leave you with that and say thank you very much for listening and watching. And it's goodbye from me and Alexia.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
See you next time. Bye.
See you next time.
Bye.